They can control the jet stream, and a whole lot more. January 2, 2020 by Anna von Reitz. Our military can control the jet stream and has been able to do this since the 1970s. It was this fact that led to the ENMOD Treaty sponsored by the United Nations Organization. So, now, there are other military and non-military organizations horsing around with the jet stream and conducting experiments with these rivers of atmospheric water streaming around the globe over our heads. The rule is, you can only conduct experiments on your own country. You can only inflict damage as a result of these experiments on your own people. They were conducting these dry-out experiments on the U.S. this past summer. Witness all the burning going on in California, Alaska, and elsewhere. But, guess what? Actual Americans are non-domestic with respect to the United States citizenry, so they couldn't conduct their experiments here without violating the terms of the ENMOD treaties. And now poor Australia is suffering for it. The easy answer for the Aussies is to get the Aboriginal tribal leaders to complain to the United Nations that their people are non-domestic with respect to the Australia government and they are being impacted. The government is then forced to curtail its own activities and/or call off their subcontractors and police private corporations engaged in such activities, to bring them in line with the international treaties involved. So long as nobody calls them on it, they get away with it. So call them on it. This is an attack on the Australian people by the Australian Defence Ministry and can't be anything else, because anything non-domestic going on for this length of time would cause the Australian government to complain against Russia or Elon Musk or China or whoever or whatever non-domestic source was causing the drought problem, and the entire membership of the United Nations would be on the perpetrators like white on rice. Now, as to why the US or the Aussie counterpart would be interested in baking their homeland to a crisp, I haven't a clue. This much I can tell you, they have been able to control the jet stream for 50 years, and if Australia is suffering drought, it's because the Southern Hemisphere's equivalent jet stream is out of whack and not being properly controlled. Take that to mean that the drought in Australia could easily be ended, simply by diverting atmospheric water to Australia. I bitched to the United Nations about the U.S. testing and the drought conditions resulting from it impacting non-domestic populations, and we had rain, lots of it, in 3 days when no rain was in the forecast for 3 weeks. Go figure. They can also cause and control earthquakes by setting up resonant frequencies and broadcasting from mobile CIPPA units. We are currently experiencing such activities on both sides of the American continent. Again, this is part of geoengineering experiments being conducted by the U.S. government, and can't be anything else, or there would be broad-spectrum complaining going on against the governments of other countries engaging in any such activity. And again, consider this my complaint to the United Nations Organization and another clear example of violation of the ENMOD treaties and impacts being suffered by non-domestic populations as a result of U.S. activities. In order to get action against these sorts of things, be it weather modification or weaponized earthquake testing or chemtrail pollution of the atmosphere, you have to know who to complain to, and know the basis of making a complaint. In all these instances, the responsible government is the United Nations, and the basis for complaint is that non-domestic populations are being adversely impacted by these purportedly domestic tests and experiments. If any damage occurs to the American continent as a result of U.S. testing of the earthquake zones along our east and west coasts, I promise a prompt and appropriate retaliation that will break the perpetrators and leave them sweeping streets in Singapore. Help support this work by visiting www.annavonreitz.com and look for the donate button. Links to this article and more can be found in the video description box.
Attention seasonal allergy and hay fever sufferers. Listen up. This simple tool relieves seasonal allergy and hay fever symptoms. Learn how to use it and where to buy it. Watch the videos on wellnessrods.com. Thank you.